the numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'm your co-host Bob Zarrell, and I'm alone in Deadbug Studios. Visit us at No Shock Pod on Twitter. Our Facebook page is the Nothing Shocking Podcast community fan page. Subscribe to us there, like us there. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Alexa, Stitcher, all your podcatchers. Subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. We'll read your reviews on the air. My daughter is in the studio right now. She may or may not say anything. Our guest this week is Scott Soto of Sons of Apollo. He's the founding member of WET. He plays with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Obviously got to start with Yngwie Malmsteen. Great frontman. Sons of Apollo has a new album out called 2020. This interview was done before the coronavirus pandemic, so we don't talk about it all. We don't address it even a little bit.
No. I mean, I can hear you, but not in the microphone. Can you hear me? Because I can hear myself, but not you. Oh, gosh.
How about now? Am I better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you going to stop it?
No, I'm going to leave all this in.
Oh, my God.
We did the interview before the coronavirus pandemic, so we don't address that at all. So if you're wondering why, that's why. But as I mentioned, Sons of Apollo have a new album out 2020. They just finished their U.S. tour, North American tour, in January, I think, or maybe February. I don't know. I mean, obviously nobody knows what the plans are for the next coming months, so we'll see how that all plays out. But I am going to be doing some smaller interviews over the next couple weeks, months. I don't know. I have nothing else to do because we're all on lockdown. So look for those episodes. Hopefully we have more coming out in future weeks to come. I do have some planned. We'll see how the internet holds up for those interviews. I do want to thank our sponsors, Ragged Records. I know they're probably not open right now, but they've been a great support of the podcast, as has Legends Picks. And, of course, the band Hong Kong Sleepover for letting us use their music on the show. Thank you very much for doing that. I'm going to jump right to the interview with Scott Soto, but be sure to pick up the new album by Sons of Apollo 2020 and look for the new album from WET, Jeff's other band. They started recording that in 2020, so that should be coming out soon, too, as well. Otherwise, enjoy the interview. Good night.
Bob, hi, it's Jeff Scott Soto calling in.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing all right, yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me.
Oh, absolutely.
First of all, congratulations on the new album, 2020. The album's been out a month. You just finished the North American leg of the tour and getting ready to head overseas. Let's start with the album. For you, what's the difference this time around? Is it when it came to writing and recording as compared to the first one?
Not too much. The only real difference is because we didn't really have experience together as a unit. We basically kind of just knew each other through the years as musicians and peers. We didn't really have a direction or a sound or a foundation yet for Sons of Apollo. So the only way to do that is we were a little more hands-on together with it. This time around, I kind of knew, well, not kind of, I knew exactly what to do in terms of my role, in terms of where we were going musically, thematically, and all of the above. So I was given a lot more freedom to come up with my own melodies and lyrics and themes, etc., and even record my own stuff instead of having somebody over my shoulder while I was, trying things out or just suggesting things as I went along. And it was a smooth process in doing it that way, in the sense of I could finish an entire song, send it to everybody, and then we would kind of nitpick what we might want to fix or change or edit or make better, all of the above. So for the most part, the first album, basically I was in the room with Mike and Derek, kind of chiseling, creating, and carving up the actual album on Psychotic Symphony. This time around, I got the luxury and respect to kind of take care of that on my own.
You mentioned the sound. On that first album, did you guys have an idea in mind of what you wanted it to be, or did Mike and Derek have an idea, or did it just kind of, once you guys all got together, it developed itself? And then I guess the second part of that is, on this new one, now that you had a sound in place, were there rules and boundaries, or were you able to expand on that sound?
They kind of knew. Obviously, once they got the music down, the ideas of melodically and even not lyrically, but more melodically, especially on my end, they knew where they were going once the actual songs were written and kind of placed down. From that, again, the same process was between Derek and Bumblefoot and Mike to sit down and kind of carve and create that. So for the better part of us putting this band together, it had to start there. And then once that was done, then we came together to put the rest together. The second album, they pretty much followed that same procedure. The only difference was that I was given the songs to kind of dive in, and I told them, I knew exactly where we needed to go with this. Now I have a foundation of what we sound like, and knowing this, I was able to just kind of follow up on what we've already built on. I think that also helped me personally put a little more of my own, my own touches to things, as opposed to the first album. I was more or less just concentrating on the core vocals. This time around, I put more personality. I think I put more like my little yips and yaps and ad libs and all that kind of stuff, because I didn't have anybody saying, "Oh, I don't like that," or maybe that's kind of strange, until they actually heard it within the context of the song from soup to nuts.
That makes sense. I kind of want to expand on that a little bit. I mean, as a lyricist, and you're in a band with all these guys with so much history, you have so much history, and a lot of those guys have written lyrics themselves. And you mentioned having more free reign this time around. Is there still a lot of suggestions after the fact, or how does that all work with it, or do they just really need to hear it, soup to nuts, like you said?
Yeah, again, it's something that we didn't really put too much thought behind on the second album. We didn't want to change too much. We've already laid down a foundation of what this band is supposed to sound like, and for us to go in and start. If we made an album that sounded like Metallica and the second album sounded like Foreigner, then obviously we'd be doing us a disservice and an injustice rather. So we basically went into this thing knowing that let's make more of a part two of where we came from, but let's put a little more bells and whistles, a little more of our own personal selves into it. Therefore, it can breathe a little more than the first album. The first album, with anybody's first album, when it's a band like this, where it's put together with a bunch of different people that don't have that experience together, you're more or less thinking more about it compared to a band that's been together for maybe 5 years or 10 years before they finally get signed. You've already got that chemistry. You've honed into that sound. And so, yeah, it took us the amount of time to hone into our sound on the first record. The second one, we didn't want to change too much. If it wasn't broken, don't fix it.
You kind of answered this next question already, but a lot of musicians like to get in the room and jam it out and record, as a band, especially back in the day, and they like the way that sounded. As a vocalist, you've kind of mentioned liking to be alone, at least in this particular band, while you did your vocal performance. Is it more, is it difficult to capture your sound when you're by yourself and you don't have the pressures of somebody, of an audience, basically, or not?
Absolutely not. I prefer it mainly because I need to kind of work on. I need to make myself believe in it first. I need to be able to listen back to it and and feel that it's good enough for the rest of the world to hear it before I play it for anybody else. As far as I'm concerned, I prefer this method. I've been doing it for so many years now. Whenever I have to go into a session or a studio situation where I have somebody on the other side of the glass, punching me in or telling me, giving me direction, I personally don't work better that way. I work best when somebody gives me the song, gives me the chance to kind of tweak it and work at it and refine it before they even get to hear it, because it's the same as if you're hearing a song for the first time, instead of hearing it in bits and pieces or just basic ideas, right, you're getting a whole picture of what that person's trying to translate to you. And I like doing that when even if it's my own solo band or I'm doing something within the context of my own groups. I want the band to hear my vision before they start piping in and chiming in. Well, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that?
That makes a ton of sense. In terms of when you receive the music from Mike, Derek, and Bumblefoot, I've read that your big influences are like Motown and R&B, and then like rock's the third. When you get the music from guys like them, what is your initial instinct when you get the music? Do you know what you want to do right away, or do you need to let it breathe and kind of live with it for a little bit?
So for me, it's all about the music dictates what I'm going to be writing about, or how I'm going to write. I really don't preconceive anything until I actually hear the song itself, and until I get to hear it. I'm not Bernie Taupin. Bernie Taupin wrote so many lyrics for Elton John, and Elton incorporated into his music. They never actually sat down and collaborated together. And I'm not one of those guys where I can just write melodies and lyrics without any reference. I need the music to dictate and kind of give me the theme. If you give me a kind of heavy, grungy kind of song, I can't take a lyric that I wrote just sitting around about holding hands and running to the daffodils and it's going to fit, and vice versa. You're not going to give me this ballad. I'm going to basically write these lyrics about how much I can't stand my former boss. So it goes hand in hand that I have to listen to and kind of vibe off the music to then dictate what the melody is going to sound like. And then from the melodies, that's what dictates what I'm actually going to be writing the lyrics about.
When you bring all these well-respected musicians together, does it end up being just a bunch of guys excited to play together, or is there pressure to be on your A game at all times? And, how do you keep ego out of it, or do you even really need to at this point in your career with, as well-respected as you guys are?
Yeah, and with this band, we kind of set the ground rules early on. We knew early on that Mike and Derek were kind of the captains of this ship. And we were good with that. We weren't going to go into this situation confused as to who was steering the ship. And it was very well documented and understood that because we have 5 driven musicians and egos, or whatever you want to call it, people that came from so many different walks of life for the past few decades, that it could be too many chefs in the kitchen if we allowed it to be. So it was best that we just let these guys steer this ship, and we're so busy with our own collective and individual careers anyways. It's one less thing to alleviate it from myself, for instance. I don't have to go in and say, well, I don't like what you did with the logo or the cover design, so I think we should do this. And then it turns into arguments and disagreements, and that's usually what breaks up most bands. So I'm fine with letting Mike run with the creative end of things. I'm fine with Derek choosing who we're working on the business end of things. And I basically just get to say, tell me where I need to show up and show me the results of the album and the photos that you chose. I mean, I say that to the degree of we still agree on things in the end as a band. Everything finalizes as a band, but we let these guys kind of initiate everything. And then for the most part, we trust their visions for this particular band, and we just run with it.
Well, yeah, and I talked to Mike when the first album came out, and he did kind of downplay it more as, he just wanted to be someone to have a decision maker to keep the process moving forward, and not because they really do capture the 5 of you, the sound. It's amazing how, that bluesy voice that you have mixed with this kind of a hard rock, prog metal thing. It's all it's hard to put your finger on what it is, and they do a really good job of allowing you guys all to be captured in the sound. Was that something that was difficult to do? Because even with the first album, you said they were over your shoulder, but I mean, maybe obviously clearly you show up more on this one, but you still sounded great, and there were great songs. You know, you could definitely feel you on that first album as well. You know, how did they capture that?
Again, it was trial and error because we never worked together in the studio. We didn't have that experience just yet. So as we're trying different things, they're hearing what my voice can do. They're hearing what my voice wants to do. Some things work, some things don't. I'll take, for example, on the first album, there's a song called, I think it was Labyrinth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was on Labyrinth. There's a middle section there that it's an odd timing. It's normally I'm singing on the four to the floors straight parts. I'm not usually singing over any of the odd timings, but there's one little break in the song Labyrinth that has a strange time signature to sing over. And originally they heard kind of a Steven Tyler kind of scat, and they knew because I come from a soulful, funky kind of background that I'd be able to pull that off. I love Aerosmith. I love Steven Tyler. But we were going to try kind of a funky, soulful scat over a strange time signature, probably something nobody's ever done before. And we pulled it off. It sounded great for the moment. And then once they live with it, they go, you know what? This sounds a little too forced. It doesn't sound natural. And we ended up coming up with something that's more of a straight singing line over that time signature, which was the final result. So from that, they realized what I was able to do, that I was able to basically do anything they threw at me. And from that, as I said, once we got the foundation for the first record, it was easier to kind of let it flow for the second one.
That's awesome. Aerosmith was my favorite band, and when you guys did Dream On, I mean, right away I went straight to that because I wanted to hear you hit that note, and when you do it at the end, I love when I don't know, it was amazing, but just paying you a compliment. You just finished an American run about a week ago or so. You're getting ready to head overseas. Has the live dynamic changed since the first album cycle, or has it just kind of always progressed?
Well, it's for starters, we're doing the majority of the new album, and we're doing less of the first album. Obviously, we had to cut some things because for the first album we had to add things, having only one album to draw from. That's why we added a couple of Dream Theater songs that both Derek and Mike were a part of. It made the most sense that because they started this band, if we're going to do any covers, we were going to do them from their era. We weren't going to fill the setup with a bunch of things from Talisman and Yngwie and Mr. Big and, you know, and so for the second album, for the second tour, because we have two albums that pretty much clock in at about an hour each, we knew we had more than enough material to do everything without having to do everything. We were able to add the solos and not force a set of doing both albums in their entirety just because we needed to make a set list out of it. So it's creative enough that the set flows without having to do in the entire two records. But on the other hand, again, we already had that experience under our belts, having toured for 7 months back in 2018. It was pretty easy. It was pretty natural to just kind of drop the songs and the set list together and make it work and make it happen.
Will there be more American dates on this run, or with all the projects you guys have going on, or is what we just got what we got?
There are murmurs that we're looking to add more. At the moment, there are none dead set because we're looking at timing. We're looking at the amount of time that most promoters need or want to promote shows, and then from that, we need to see the availability of both the band and the dates themselves. But I really am hoping that we're going to do a follow-up and hit markets that we missed on this first one at the latter part of the year.
A couple more questions. I'll let you go. All of you have multiple bands and projects, and it seems like this era of the music industry really encourages that. And I kind of want to get your opinion on having multiple bands. On one hand, you get to keep things fresh by stepping away and doing something else and then coming back. But on the other hand, you're back in the old days, you have to go on tour for 3 or 4 years, jump on different tours, open, do package tours. At this point, is it more of a blow that you can't spend the 3 or 4 years on an album cycle, or is it more of a blessing to, go out and experience different things?
I don't really think we put that much thought behind it. Everything is different. Everything from the way the whole record cycle, the way we release albums, the way we expect physical product to still sell. A lot of that has changed. But we've at this point adapted so much to what the new norm is that we don't even think about that. We just go out and do it based on what's available to us. And there's not really much to say about that. It's you can only do so much, and you can only do what's available to you. So you adapt to it, you just do it, and that becomes the new norm.
This era of the whole entertainment industry is more accessible than it was when you and I were growing up. When we turned our rock stars into gods and we put them on pedestals, and there was a mystery that was definitely been lost today. But today we can go on social media and ask Mike Portnoy a question, and there's a realistic chance he'll answer it. As a fan first and an artist second, do you prefer the mystery or the accessibility?
I absolutely miss the mystery. But you know what? With the era you're talking about, there were far less bands.
Right.
The competition was way less. So the mystery was a little easier to prolong. As we got into the 80s, and then you had all the magazines, all the trades, and all that stuff. That was another thing that kind of it gave you more accessibility, and there was less mystery, but it wasn't as immediate as now. That we live in an age now. It's you finish a song at a concert, and before that concert's over, it's already streaming. So
right.
the mystery is certainly getting shorter and shorter. But from that, there are benefits that come from how things are done today. Everything from the labels don't control you anymore. The labels don't control a lot of things before that you were hoping and wanting to get out sooner, because those things can help you in the end. If we have a great night, if we have a sold-out show, the rest of the world knows about it that night, as opposed to waiting for the end of a tour when it shows up in a magazine or a magazine article. And those things kind of promote and help you as you're going. They can hurt you, too, if you play a show and nobody shows up. You have somebody saying, yeah, it was a great gig. Too bad there were only 25 people here. That can hurt you just the same. But again, it kind of harkens back to what I just said. You kind of roll with those punches and changes, and you make them work for you the best you can, because there's nothing you can do to really change it and revert it back to what and how it was. And that goes the same with bands in the 70s that were looking back into the past of how they did in the 50s.
Right.
You can't go back to that. You're never going to go back to that. It's never going to be the same. So now you make do with those new changes, and you push forward, and you make them work for what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I love the new album. I love the first album, and I really love what you guys have done. You're kind of the perfect combination of everything I love in music. So I love your band. And before I let you go, is there anything else you want to plug or cover before we end this?
Well, first of all, thank you for that. It's a huge undertaking when you do one of these things, because the first thing you've got to battle, and the biggest hurdles are the fact that it's a fabricated, pieced together band for the sake of being successful just because of who's in the band.
Right.
And that was something we absolutely wanted to prove from day one, that it was the exact opposite of that. We all committed to this and wanted to do this because we wanted to do it together, not just because we thought it would be a quick ticket or a money grab. But so thank you for that. And secondly, I'm finishing off the year with, I just finished on the break between the end of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra tour and the first Sons of Apollo run. I finished the vocals for my new solo album, not the band Soto. It's a Jeff Scott Soto solo album for Frontiers Records. That's probably going to come out latter part of the year. And then in between, I guess just after the South American tour, I'm in the studio again to do a new Wet album, another Frontiers project.
Oh, nice.
So I'm a pretty busy boy. In between tours and albums, I'm not stopping productivity. And basically, I'm just getting ready for the next stages. And to be honest with you, there's even murmurs and talks of, as soon as this cycle is done, to start immediately on a new Sons of Apollo record, so we can just continue hitting and striking while the iron's hot. So that's all I can say on that front right now.
That's amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to an exciting year. Thank you again. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Talk to you later.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
I'll be broadcasting the underdeal. the sky is jumping.